Are you stuck with your busy schedule? Have you forgotten the purpose of your life? Get ready to ignite your faith, deepen your relationships, and find inspiration in everyday life to enlighten your forgotten life purpose. Hear fresh, dynamic ideas, all from a faith perspective with our renowned speakers that will leave you with something to ponder. Here's Cana Talks, a roadmap to happiness.
Our first speaker tonight now is Niall McDonagh. The topic here is, who am I? Niall is going to present on the theme of human dignity and identity. Every human possesses inherent dignity that cannot be earned or lost because they have been created by God. Ladies and gentlemen, will you give a huge Castlebar welcome to Niall McDonagh?
Yes, a joy for me to be here. As you heard, I haven't come from too far away today. I come from Galway City, and I experienced my first miracle today. When I pulled into Castlebar, it's the first time I've come to Mayo, and it hasn't been raining. So we're off to a good start already. I have lived in many different countries. I'm only up here for 15 minutes, so I can't list them all. But I've been back in Ireland the last number of months, and it's been brilliant. It's been fantastic to catch up with some old friends, meet some new friends, and also visit so many different communities. And one of the places that I visited was a prison. And I was invited into this prison to share my life story, my testimony about some of the things that God in His mercy has done in my life and how He's transformed my life. And I was speaking to the prisoners. They were before me. It was a man's prison here in Ireland. And I was asking them a question. And I challenged them a little bit as well. I said, whatever crime you've committed to be here, that is not your identity. Whatever it is that you've done to be here, please do not define yourself by that. And yes, your family members, your friends might have given up on you, but I want to speak about one person now who definitely has not given up on you. And his name is Jesus Christ. And he wants a relationship with you, and he loves you so much. After I stopped speaking, one of the men came up to me and he said, Niall, you were talking about this guy, Jesus Christ. And I said, yeah. And he goes, and he loves me. I said, yes, of course. He looked very confused. But he goes, Niall, what's there to love about me? Look at the state of my life. I'm in here in prison. He goes, no one would miss me if I was gone. And when he said that, I was saddened. Because nobody had told this man the truth of his identity. No one had told this man who he really was. I remember another time I was working in Washington, D.C. I was working with the Missionaries of Charity, the congregation that Mother Teresa founded. And I was working with AIDS patients. And one of the days, one of the sisters said to me, Niall, will you bathe and wash this man? And I said, yeah, of course. But when I turned around, my heart sunk because this man was very well known in the house. He was very difficult to manage. The poor guy, yes, he had AIDS, but he was also schizophrenic, and he was always shouting and making noise, and he was very erratic. So anyways, I said I'd get on with it. And as soon as I began showering him, it was a disaster. Because he was moving around, he wouldn't stand still. The water was going everywhere. It was me who was under the shower, and he was standing outside of the shower. And I was soaked. He was giving me the shower. And then it got worse. He began to go to the toilet. And I was like, man, get me out of here. And it began to smell, and I was like, right, I just want to get out of here. I'll wash him down quickly. And I leaned across to get his dressing gown. And as soon as I did that, I froze. Because deep down, I knew that this man wasn't fully clean. I knew in my heart he wasn't fully clean. If I had to fully clean this man, I had to go into places that I did not want to go. I didn't want to go there. So this was a moment of weakness for me because I could have easily put the dressing gown back on him, left him outside. He couldn't speak, he couldn't communicate, he couldn't tell anybody. Nobody would have ever known. I would have got away with it. But when I reached for the dressing gown, I froze because I was face to face with my own weakness, my own poverty. And I did this. I said a prayer. I was like, God, please help me to do this. I don't have the strength to do it. Please help me to do this, God. And I turned around. I continued to shower him. I cleaned him properly. I put a dressing gown on him and I brought him onto his seat. He sat down and I walked down the corridor away from him. And as soon as I did that, I was overcome with a great peace. And I felt rejoicing in my heart that I'd never experienced before, rejoicing. And the scripture comes to mind, when you did it to one of the least of these, you did it to me. You see, not only did I nearly deny his God-given dignity, I nearly denied Jesus Christ. Why? Because as Mother Teresa says, Jesus Christ comes to us disguised in the poor. You see, what was this man's greatest suffering? The man in prison that I was telling you about, what was his greatest suffering? Was it the fact that his family don't speak to him, that he's in prison, that he's lost his freedom? No, it's not. This man with the missions of charity, what was his greatest suffering? Was it the fact he was schizophrenic? Was it the fact he had AIDS? No, it wasn't. Their greatest suffering is that they lose their dignity. They lost their dignity. And by me doing that simple act of charity, washing this man, I'm handing him back his dignity, making him feel like he mattered, even if it was for only a few moments. You see, we shouldn't define someone by a diagnosis that they've received. We shouldn't define someone by maybe a crime that they've committed. And we don't define someone by the mistakes they've made in life, and we don't define ourselves by the mistakes that we might make in life. Not at all. Now, let me ask you this question. Your own dignity, your own identity, your own self-worth, where does it come from? Do you get your self-worth from people, places, and things, or do you get it from God the Father? Do you have a relationship with God? Or maybe you're like me. For most of my life, I look for my identity from the world. And if you look from your identity from the world, it will steal your identity. Why? Because the evil one is a thief and is a liar. The evil one wants to shame you, humiliate you, accuse you, and lie to you in your brokenness, whereas God the Father, he wants to love you in your brokenness. So this is an invitation for everybody here. This is a personal invitation to begin to see yourself not through the eyes of lies, but through the eyes of God. What does God see when he looks at you? Who does he see? Maybe growing up you experienced abandonment, rejection, and betrayal, and if you did, I'm really sorry. But again, that's not your identity. Maybe you experienced severe rejection, and because of that now, you believe the lie that you're not lovable, that you're unlovable, and that's a lie that comes from the father of lies. And that's why right now I want to announce the truth of who you are. I want to renounce the lie and announce the truth. For so much of my life, I look for my identity from accomplishments, achievements, perfectionism. But all the glory that I did gather for myself, you know what it was? Vainglory. It was all about me. And I learned this lesson. And if you don't remember anything else that I say tonight, please remember this. I learned this lesson the hard way in my own life, through all the mistakes that I made. That identity is not something that I create, it's something that I receive. Identity is not something I manufacture myself or fabricate, it's something I receive from God the Father. And I'm going to talk for a moment now about one man who did not know his true identity. Right? You might all know the story. It's the story of the prodigal son. One of the most famous stories in the New Testament. Now, the younger son asks the father for his inheritance because he sees the father as the enemy to his happiness. The younger son's at home and he's fed up with all the rules that the father has at home. So he asks for his inheritance. Now, when does a son usually receive his inheritance? When his father dies. So what he's basically saying to the father is, you are dead to me, so give me what I'm going to get anyway. And he receives his money and he goes on his way. And what happens? He looks for a quick fix of gratification. He starts living for pleasure, lives a pleasure-seeking lifestyle, trying to solve his problems. And where does he end up? A pigsty. Now, let's think about this for a moment. When the prodigal leaves the father's house, right, with lots of money, I'm sure he had lots of friends, lots of people wanted to be around him, everybody wanted to know him. But when he had no money, when he wasn't useful anymore, it was as if he did not exist. This is the conditional love that's offered to us every day by the world. Henry Nouwen has a beautiful line. He says, as long as I look for my identity and my dignity in the world of conditional love, I will remain a slave to the world. You guys know how it goes, right? What does the world say? I love you if you're intelligent. I love you if you've got good qualifications. If you've got good education, yeah, then I love you. I love you if you're good looking. I love you if you've got great connections. Yeah, that's when you're useful. Looking for love, doing the wrong things with the wrong people, never satisfies the deepest cravings of our heart. Never. Let's look at the prodigal for a moment. He left full of money. Why? Quite arrogant, confident, you could say. and he returns as a beggar. A beggar. He looked for his identity in the world, and it stole his identity. Because identity is not something I create, it's something that I receive. But the prodigal makes the decision to go home to the Father. He wants to go back into the Father's house. He wants a relationship with his Father. But the Father doesn't humiliate him or shame him in his brokenness. No, he loves him in his brokenness. And it's been the same in my own life. When I took the decision to return to the Father's house, to invite God into my life, I got a reception and a welcome beyond my wildest dreams. You see, the love that you're looking for in this life, the happiness that you're looking for in this life does exist. Not out there in the world of conditional love, but back in your Father's house. A relationship with God. The prodigal learned a lesson that I have learned in my own life. He learned it the hard way, and I learned it the hard way too, through all the mistakes I made in life. That God the Father, he's not the enemy to our happiness with these rules. He's the source of our happiness. Because when I lived life doing what I wanted, when I wanted, I was a slave to the world. But when I took the decision to invite God into my life and return to the Father's house, it was the first time I experienced true freedom and true joy. Now, I said earlier on that we shouldn't define ourselves by the mistakes that we make in life. But we shouldn't also define ourselves by our accomplishments or our achievements. Let me explain that for a second. Now, these things are good, very good. Maybe you are great at sports. Maybe you're a great musician. Maybe you're good academically. Maybe you have a great job, right? These things are good and we need them for life. And I encourage you in the gifts that you've been given, 100%. But if I look for my full identity in one of these things, what happens if I lose it? Then I'll have an identity crisis. Like me, I grew up wanting to play sport all the time, and then because of an injury I had, I couldn't play sport anymore, and then I didn't know who I was. Dr. Bob Schutz opens this up beautifully, and he talks about the baptism of Jesus. This is it here. John the Baptist baptizes Jesus, and a voice comes from heaven and says, "This is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased." Right? But the voice didn't say, "This is my beloved Son in whom I'm well pleased because of his accomplishments or his achievements." No, not at all. He didn't say, "This is my beloved Son, Jesus, and I'm so proud of him because he's such a great speaker," or, "He's so wise," or, "You're such a good counselor, Jesus." No, not at all. He rejoiced in him simply because he existed. And my friends, that's the same with you and I. There is nothing that I can do to earn God's love. He loves me simply because I exist. Let me explain this in a different way. If you've held a newborn baby before, think about that. Maybe it was your firstborn, maybe it was a grandchild, maybe it was a nephew, a niece, maybe it was a brother or a sister, right? Think about that for a moment when you held that newborn baby. What was that like? You were full of love for that baby, right? For that child. When you looked them in the eyes for the first time, you really loved them. But why? What reason were they giving you to love them? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure they probably kept you up all night, woke you up a lot, probably got sick on you, they were vomiting on you, right? They didn't smell too good either, I'm betting. Yeah, but yet you loved them. But why? You loved them unconditionally, simply because they existed. You delighted in them. That's how God the Father looks at us right now all the time. That's how God the Father looks at you. He delights in you simply because he created you. There's nothing that you can do to earn or merit God's love. There's nothing you can do to earn God's love. That, my friends, is your identity. You are a beloved son. You are a beloved daughter of a loving Father in heaven. Now, that language might sound strange to you. Have you invited God into your heart? Have you invited the Father into your life? If you haven't, then, in your own time, in your own way, ask God to reveal himself to you. Ask God to reveal his fatherhood to you. Ask God to secure you in your relationship as a son or as a daughter. One of the saddest things I've ever witnessed in some of my missionary work is when I was in Manila in the Philippines, and we were visiting young children who found themselves in prison, teenagers and young boys. And one day we went to a prison here, as you can see, and I came across a really bizarre and odd situation. I come across this young boy here. And I was shocked because this boy is actually special needs. He's Down syndrome. And so I went over to the prison guard and I said, sorry, he says, what's this guy doing here? What's this young boy doing here? Nobody knew his age because he couldn't speak. Nobody knew how old he was. And they said that they found him wandering the streets by himself. They're guessing that his mother or his caretaker or whoever was looking after him didn't have the money, didn't have the resources to look after him. So for his own safety, they brought him into prison. And when I went over to him and sat next to him, it was like I was sitting next to an unspeakable tragedy. All I could do was just picture him wandering the streets by himself, all by himself. But when I looked him in the eye, this was a life-changing event for me. Because I knew I hadn't met this young boy by chance. And it made me realize something about my own life. That my greatest satisfaction wasn't going to come from status or materialism or possessions, but the way in which we love others. You see, the eyes of the world looked at this young boy as a burden, someone we don't need in society. But when he was looked upon with a different set of eyes, the eyes of love, the eyes of mercy, he actually revealed himself as a tremendous gift to me. This young boy has changed my life, played a huge role in that. God was in this young boy that society wanted to throw away. God is in most people that society wants to throw away. That's why when Jesus Christ walked this earth, who did he spend his time with? Was it the rich, the famous, celebrities? No. It was tax collectors, prostitutes, thugs and thieves, and it would be the same if he walked this earth today. You know, when I meet God one day, which is going to happen, by the way, when I come face to face with God, when I die, there's definitely one thing he's not going to ask me, and it's this. Neil, why were you not Mother Teresa? Or Neil, why were you not Cristiano Ronaldo? Or Neil, why were you not St. Francis of Assisi? No, he's definitely not going to ask me that. But what he will ask me is this. Neil, why were you not Niall McDonagh? You see, holiness, or for me to live my best life, it's not going off to live somebody else's life. No, it's becoming the person that God has created me to be. And who has he created me to be? Myself. And he's created you to be yourself. So when you look at your friends who might be holy, or if you look at the lives of the saints, don't be jealous, because you can give God something that nobody else can give. And what is that? Your unique love. So please, remember this. Identity is not something we create. It's something we receive. Thank you very much.
10 years of sharing the peace of Christ. Shalom World, God's own channel.